Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Buer taking a look at a very important Kentucky Derby prep to be contested at the Big A on Saturday. It's the Grade 3 $300,000 Gotham Stakes, one of several stakes races carded at the Big A on Saturday. Bet them all with a new DRF Bets account, because when you sign up at bets.drf.com, you get to double your action. You bet 100, you get 100. Let's meet the field of three-year-olds getting set to go this one-turn mile at Aqueduct, carded as race number 10. And Mike, there is a ton of speed lined up.
There sure is. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the early stages here, because, you know, it feels like most of this field wants to be at least forward in this race. It'll be interesting to see who actually goes, though, and who doesn't. To me, I sort of felt like, I don't know if you agree with this or not, Dan, 4, 6, and 7, they seem like the three horses to me who are going to be right up there with the pace early.
Let's talk about the 6 Instagrand, even money on the morning line. He raced twice last year. He won both starts by a combined 20 1/4 lengths. In the form of a potential champion, and his owner, after he won the Best Pal in his second lifetime start, decided to stop on him. Sort of an odd decision, to be sure, which means that Instagrand is coming off an elongated layoff, stretching out 1/4 of a mile, shipping all the way across the country, and taking on other speeds. Even money doesn't seem like a bargain to me.
It'll be interesting to see what he does, because there's no denying the talent that he showed as a 2-year-old. Only 2 starts, but he was ultra impressive both times. When was the last time skipping races with a horse who was in the form he was in worked out? I don't feel like it works out that often. We'll see if it's a different story for Instagrand. To me, he's way the horse to beat. And his 2 races last year were super. And the thing that I liked about him, Dan, is yes, he was on the lead both times. He wasn't a speed crazy 2-year-old. He didn't speed pop either of those fields. He got to the lead, yes, but he was perfectly fine with horses stacking up to his outside, and he just left them for dead in the stretch. He was really impressive in those races.
Didn't love the field he beat in the Best Pal, but that's how you beat bad fields. You just destroy them. Are you a little worried about his pedigree? He's a full sister to a stakes place dirt sprinter, and of course, he is going to have to stretch out to the one-turn mile here.
I'm not worried about his pedigree yet. We'll see how far he wants. I don't know how far he ultimately wants to go, Dan. The mile, the one-turn mile, feels like if they're thinking they're going to try to get to the Derby with him, this is the race you have to run him, and you can't sprint him off the layoff.
We talked about the pace for this race. Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. We are expecting a fast pace in here. The 7, Not That Brady, is expected to maybe have a slight lead after the first half mile or so, and Not That Brady really was game last time out in the Grade 3 Withers. I think 1 1/8 was just a little bit far for him. He broke from the far outside post, got hung out 4 wide on the first turn, eventually was able to make a comfortable lead, and was dead game in the stretch. The rail skimming tacks just nailed him on the wire. I like him cutting back to a mile, but this is a horse that's had some quarter crack issues over the last couple of weeks, and you really got to come into a race with maximum preparation against a field like this. But you got to trust Rudy, don't you?
Yeah, you don't like the quarter crack idea coming into this race with this horse, but I'm with you. I like him cutting back to the mile. You know, I do want some confirmation. He's fastest on the way in with that 95 buyer last time. I want a little confirmation that the Withers was actually that fast to race. We'll see how it all plays out. Nobody's run back out of that race yet, but a bunch of them are coming back on Saturday, either here or at Tampa Bay Downs. So we'll see what happens with that race. I like Not That Brady as a horse. I don't like him that much in this race. I think he's just in a really tough spot here. I don't want to knock this horse too much, but I'm not sure I think he's actually as good as he may look on paper.
There are 2 Grade 1 stakes winners in this field, and we'll begin with the Keeneland graduate, the number 2 Knicks Go, who is 12 to 1 on the morning line. Still a far cry from the 70 to 1 odds he gave when he scored in gate-to-wire fashion in the Breeders' Futurity, and he proved that race was no fluke with a runner-up effort at 40 to 1 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, his last 2 races, uninspiring to say the least, but maybe he's a bit dirtied up. Perhaps he didn't like the slop in the Kentucky Jockey Club, and he had to go very fast early to boot. And last time out in his first start of the year, he was on the chase against well-defined, a gate-to-wire winner, and Benny Colbrick historically does very well second start of the form cycle. I kind of like Knicks Go turning back a little bit, but I wonder what kind of trip he's going to get.
I like him turning back too, Dan, and he does have those 2 races. I mean, listen, he's a Grade 1 winner. There are 2 Grade 1 winners in this field, and neither one of them is Instagrand, who's going to be the favorite. I'm willing to give him the sloppy track excuse for the Kentucky Jockey Club. I can't give him an excuse for his last race. He just didn't run well last time. He didn't. That was not the kind of race that I want to be betting him back off of. I like him cutting back in this race. I don't think he can make the lead in here. He's going to beat this field from off the pace. If he does, it'll be without me.
He'll certainly have to perform better than the other set of Knicks that are competing in New York currently. The number 3, Mind Control, the other Grade 1 winner in the field. He went gate to wire in the hopeful at Saratoga, although in that race he was kind of handed the lead when the other speed didn't break. He was very game, and I think that's kind of the benchmark of this horse. He's a tough, gritty, professional sort. Now, he bombed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, finishing behind Knicks Go, but he missed the all-important final prep for that race, the Breeders' Futurity, when an elevated temperature knocked him out the day of the race. Maybe he was a short horse in the Juvenile. I liked what he did in the Jerome last time out over course and distance. I know it was a good track. He took a little pressure early. Our Brain Trust made a run at him. Our Brain Trust came back to run third in the Withers, only getting beaten in the neck with a 95 Beyer speed figure. Now, I like what they decided to do. I think Greg Sacco is a very underrated trainer. They were going to stretch this horse out and run him a 1 1/8 in the Withers, and they decided to opt for the shorter race, and I think shorter is a lot better for this horse.
Yeah, I agree with all those things. I think he's a contender in this race. You know, it'll be, if you just look at him on paper, you see that the good races that he's run, all of them right up there with the pace. I'm not so sure that he needs the lead to be effective, though. I think he could fall into a good trip in this race, and I'm with you. I think he ran really well last time. This is a horse, you know, Instagrand I think will be tough to beat in this race. I'm going to use this horse.
Let's talk about the number 4, Much Better. This is a Bob Baffer-trained 3-year-old, and he really improved with the addition of blinkers last time out, although at 2 to 5, you can argue he's supposed to beat those non-winners of one other than foes at Santa Anita, and he did so over a good track. I'm a little bit concerned that this horse might want actually shorter distances. His Damn Dust and Diamonds was a really hard-hitting, graded stakes-winning sprinter. This horse has lost ground from the stretch call to the wire in all 3 route appearances, although 2 were on turf and 1 were arguably against better horses.
Yeah, I mean, the only time they went long with him on dirt in that sham 2 starts back off a little, he did run okay in that race. I mean, I thought the pace was legitimate. He was setting it. You know, he went to his wrong lead in the stretch. He got really tired at the end of the race. I didn't care for that. And yes, he did win easily when they turned him back last time. I mean, he never even got down to serious business in that race. He just crushed that field. But it didn't come back that fast. He really has to improve in a race like this one, especially with all the other speed signed on. I know it's Baffert and Smith, but I'm going to be against this horse.
If you believe there's going to be a 5-alarm fire up front, High Call might simply be the best closer in this race. Yeah. The half-brother to the Grade 1 stakes-winning sprinter Takafel has done nothing wrong in 3 starts for Kieran McLaughlin. And yes, he did get nice situations in his last 2 races by shooting up along the inside. But he is a nice professional horse that is going to run in the end if he gets some pace. Yeah. And I'm not worried about the 1-turn mile.
I'm not either. I mean, he's supposed to have pace in this race. And I guess if you just go through this field top to bottom, he's the one that you feel like could really take advantage if you get a meltdown at the end. I like all of his races. I don't love this horse, Dan, but I like all of his races. I can see him taking another step forward here, especially with a setup. But I can't get it out of my mind that going back to that Winkfield last time, I don't want this horse out of that race. I want a different horse out of that race who's also back in here. Maybe the pace makes all the difference, but I'm going to be against this horse and use the other one.
The other one is the number 8, Tickvin Flu, who paired up 79 Beyer speed figures in his first 2 career starts for trainer Steve Asmussen. And as a son of street sense out of a half, and as a half to a multiple stakes place turf router named Latique, he's supposed to appreciate the distance. He draws very kindly on the outside where he can work out a good stalking trip. And while Heikal shot up the rail last time out, this one was on the chase outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really worth pointing out that February 9th at Aqueduct, you wanted to be on the rail. This horse was inside at in the early part of that race. He was with the pace on the rail, and for whatever reason, Manny Franco, he's just been riding lights out at this meet, he elected to give up the inside, take this horse to the outside and chase 3 wide. It really blew up in his face. He ran a lot better than it looks last time. He ran a lot better than it looks in his debut, where he was after a solid pace and turned away a closer in the stretch. This horse has talent. He's perfectly drawn outside. He's going to be a price in this race.
Completing the field is Family Biz at 30 to 1, a horse that actually defeated Heikal in Heikal's career debut, going 7 furlongs at Aqueduct, and then subsequently was stakes placed behind Mind Control in the Jerome. I think he is a nice, solid horse, and the race shape really plays to his favor. He is a true closer that could be running late. I think there are some class concerns for this ex-maiden claimer.
Yeah, there really are. We'll see what happens. It's especially disappointing because I think if you just look at his 2 stakes tries, he actually ran pretty well in both of those. I mean, he did his best. He just wasn't good enough to beat those horses. It's the race in between those at the 1 turn mile that is a real disappointment. He was bad in that race. I realize that this race could set up well for him and maybe some pieces fall into his lap. I just don't believe that he's good enough to beat a bunch of these horses.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 3 Gotham, an important Kentucky Derby prep at Aqueduct on Saturday. You're going with Instagrand. You're a believer, and why not? He won his first 2 races by open lengths. The 92 buyer earned, remember, was by a 2-year-old in August, and Jerry Hollendorfer's in the Hall of Fame for a reason.
Listen, I get all the reasons to be at least a little skeptical of this horse in this race with all the pace and the layoff and all that stuff. I just think he's a real talent. If you want to play against him, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm using this horse very prominently in this race, though, and I'm going to use Tick Fin Flu. Tick Fin Flu is the other horse for me, and he's probably going to be a better price. Maybe I should put him on top for that reason, but I want to see what Instagram does.
You're going 6, 8, 3, and 5. I'm hoping that John Velazquez can get Mind Control to sit. Now, in all of his races, as you mentioned, his good races, he's been controlling the pace or sitting just right off of it, and I'm not sure he's as fast as horses like Instagrand or Not That Brady, or maybe if Knicks Go, if he is aggressively ridden out of the gate.
Horse.
But I'm hoping that Mind Control and John Velazquez can perhaps sit in a pocket in the second flight and things work out. He's 9-2. He's got a little bit of class. I want to give him a chance. I think this 1 turn mile is his forte, and I'm trying to catch Instagrand off the layoff. I'm going 3-7-6-5 in the Grade 3 Gotham Stakes. Make sure you bet the Gotham and the supporting card at Aqueduct on Saturday with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, double your action at DRF Bets. Ready, set, bet. Approximate post time for the Grade 3 Gotham. 50 Kentucky Derby points to the winner. 5:09 Eastern. Best of luck.